Thanksgiving was the day my daughter locked me out of my own life. That sounds dramatic, but I swear to you, it's the truth. I was standing there on the porch, balancing a Kroger bag with a pecan pie, a bottle of Maker's Mark, and the turkey I had brined overnight in a Home Depot bucket. The Macy's parade was playing somewhere in the distance, and the air smelled of cold leaves and chimney smoke. It was supposed to be family, laughter, and maybe even a little forgiveness. Instead, all I got was the sound of a deadbolt sliding shut. Before we continue, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I'm 67, a retired HVAC technician, a widower. My wife, Anna, has been gone 6 years now. Since then, every holiday has felt like walking through a house where the lights don't quite turn on. Erin, my daughter, is 34, married to Tyler, who's 36. They live in the house I helped them buy 3 years ago. I live downstairs in what they call the in-law suite, though lately I've felt more like a tenant who overstayed his lease. That morning I came up from the basement carrying the turkey. I was ready to slide it into the oven like I had every Thanksgiving since Anna and I first got married. But when I tried the door at the top of the stairs, the lock didn't budge. At first, I thought it was jammed. Then I knocked. Voices drifted from the living room. Friends, not family. I heard Tyler laugh and say something about curating the guest list. That's when I realized I wasn't on it. I pulled out my phone, tapped the Ring doorbell I installed myself back in 2021, and pressed the call button. Tyler's face appeared on the screen. He had that smug grin I've come to know too well. He didn't even pretend to be sorry. "You're not on the guest list, man. This is our house." Now here's where most people might ask why I didn't push back right then, why I didn't force my way in. Truth is, I froze. I'm her father. I raised her, worked overtime shifts, crawled into attics in 100-degree Ohio summers just so she could go to college debt-free. And now, on Thanksgiving, my daughter had a husband who looked me in the eye and told me I didn't belong. But let me tell you something they forgot. I may have been holding a grocery bag, but downstairs in my safe is a blue fireproof binder. Inside are papers stamped by the Franklin County Recorder's Office, trust documents, a promissory note, and a recorded mortgage with my name on it. They forgot that when I put up $120,000 for their down payment, I didn't just hand it over out of blind faith. I secured it. I wrote it down. I filed it right. Here's the detail that will stick with you. The property taxes on that house are still paid from my Chase account every January. The insurance policy still lists me as the primary. At the time, Tyler told me it was simpler to leave it all under my name until they refinanced. Except they never did. Standing there on the porch, pie slipping in its tin, I felt the first sting of betrayal. Not just that they locked me out, but that they thought I would stay quiet, that I'd take the humiliation like a bitter old man too tired to fight. As I set the bag down on the step, I noticed something small, a sticker I had slapped on the fuse box in the garage months ago. No Star, HOA's shorthand for no short-term rentals. At the time, I thought nothing of it, but lately I had seen extra bedding bins stacked near the garage, and cars with out-of-state plates pulling in on weekends. It clicked. Tyler wasn't just keeping me out. He was running something behind my back. The pie slid a little as I bent to pick it up. I steadied myself and looked straight into the Ring camera. My voice didn't shake. "You don't think I live here?" I said. "Want to bet?" And that was the moment everything changed, because what they thought was just a lock on a door was about to turn into the biggest shock of their lives. I didn't sleep that night, not a wink. I sat in my basement room with the turkey still in its foil pan, cold and untouched. The smell of the brine clung to the air, mixing with the faint scent of furnace oil from the Goodman unit I serviced myself just last fall. My chest felt like someone had set a cinder block on it. I wanted to storm upstairs, pound on the door, and scream at them for shutting me out. But instead, I reached for the old blue fireproof binder sitting in the safe. The weight of it was heavier than any weapon I could have held. I laid the papers out on my workbench like a man setting his cards on the table. the promissory note, the second mortgage recorded in March 2021, the trust document naming me trustee. All official, all stamped with the seal of Franklin County. I wasn't just some guest in their home. I was the man who held the pen that made the roof over their heads possible. As I stared at those documents, something else came back to me. That time last year when Tyler asked me, casual as you please, if I could text him a photo of my signature just for a Best Buy warranty. My gut had told me no, and I brushed it off as one of his dumb ideas. But now, with the memory of that lock clicking shut, I began to wonder if it was more than dumb. The next morning, while most people were enjoying leftovers, I drove to Dunkin' on North High Street for a black coffee and a plain bagel. My hands trembled as I pulled my credit report up on my phone, and there it was, a hard inquiry from Best Buy/CBNA, dated 3 weeks ago. My stomach dropped. Somebody had been fishing with my name. I froze my credit on all 3 bureaus before I even finished my coffee. The woman at Equifax asked if I wanted to file a fraud report. I said yes. My voice cracked as I gave her my social. That's when the humiliation turned into something colder. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft. Here's the part where I know some of you will argue with me. Some will say, he's your daughter's husband. Maybe it's a mistake. Others will say, blood is blood. Don't air family business. I've heard all of it. But let me ask you, how much would you swallow before you choke? That afternoon, I called Ms. Valdez, my attorney. She's sharp, calm, and doesn't waste words. I emailed her the scanned note, the trust, the mortgage, and the tax statement still bearing my name. Within hours, she drafted a notice of default. Certified mail. Tracking number. Tyler would have to sign for it himself. Meanwhile, I logged on to the HOA portal. I remembered the email about short-term rentals. I uploaded screenshots from a site a neighbor, Hank, had once sent me. Same garage, same mismatched siding. I attached timestamps, license plates, even the welcome to Clintonville Cozy Retreat caption. Violations stacked like dominoes, each one worth a $250 fine. By Sunday, I had lined up every piece. The default notice, the HOA complaint, the insurance company's occupancy inquiry, and the fraud alert with Columbus PD. The binder wasn't just a pile of paper anymore. It was a loaded cannon. And yet, here's the twist inside me. I didn't want to pull the trigger. I wanted Erin to come downstairs, knock on my door, and say, Dad, I'm sorry. We went too far. I wanted her to remember I was the man who taught her to ride a bike on Indianola Avenue, who fixed her first car for free, who held her mother's hand until the very last breath. That was the part that tearing me in two. But then, just as I was stacking everything back into the binder, my phone buzzed. It was an alert from Chase. A $1,450 withdrawal request flagged insufficient funds on an account ending in numbers I didn't recognize. My account. I pulled up the details. Somebody had set up a transfer linked to my checking. And guess whose email was tied to the attempt? Tyler's old remodeling shop address, the same one he used back when he was borrowing customer invoices. That was the moment the cinder block came off my chest and turned into something sharper. Not grief, not guilt. Resolve I wasn't going to beg for a seat at their table anymore. I was going to remind them exactly who still held the keys. The following Thursday, while Erin and Tyler were hosting their Friendsgiving leftovers party, a process server knocked on their door. I heard it all from the basement, every muffled laugh turning into silence as paper slid into Tyler's hands. He stomped down the stairs, face red, fists clenched, waving the notice like it was a joke. "You can't do this," he spat. I met his eyes. My voice was steady. "Son," I said, "I already did." And that was only the beginning, because the papers in that binder weren't the only surprises waiting for him. When I told Tyler I already did, I thought I'd seen the worst of his temper. I hadn't. That night, he slammed every door in the house, pacing like a caged dog while Erin avoided my eyes. I heard muffled arguments upstairs through the vents. I caught pieces. Your father's bluffing. We can't afford this. The Airbnb covers the mortgage. Words like knives slipping through the ducts. The next morning, I drove to the police station on Morse Road, with the notice still fresh in my pocket. I wasn't there to demand handcuffs. I was there to make sure I had a record, something official. The officer at the desk took my statement about the lockout, scanned the fraud attempt, and filed it neatly. "You did the right thing, sir," she said. For the first time all week, I felt like I wasn't invisible. Back home, I sat in my basement recliner, staring at the furnace. My service tag was gone, peeled right off. Tyler had thought it was ugly. To me, it was proof that someone cared enough to keep the machine running. That missing tag said everything about him. Erase the work, keep the benefits. Here's where the story folds back on itself. Remember the extra bedding bins I mentioned near the garage? By Monday, the HOA board had issued a formal violation. Hank, my neighbor, sent me screenshots of strangers with suitcases heading into our cul-de-sac. $250 fines, stacking higher than their credit card limits. Erin's name was on every letter, not Tyler's, hers. That's the part that twisted the knife. My daughter, who once cried in my arms when she couldn't balance her college checkbook, now drowning in penalties because she tethered herself to a man who cut every corner. Tuesday, Ms. Valdez filed the notice with the county clerk. That's when the lender woke up. The bank's owner occupancy review flagged the short-term rentals, and within days, a warning letter hit the mailbox. Cure the violation or face loan acceleration. Translation: pay up or lose the house. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Because with every step forward, Erin was dragged further down. Was I punishing her or saving her from him? That's the ethical knot I still wrestle with. Late Wednesday night, my phone buzzed again. A fraud alert from my credit bureau. This time it wasn't Best Buy. It was a furniture store downtown, one Tyler had worked with during his remodeling days. They'd tried to open an account under my name using an old PDF of my HVAC proposal as proof of signature. Sloppy, desperate, and criminal. That was the second I stopped seeing him as family. He wasn't a son-in-law anymore. He was a thief in my house. By Thursday, it wasn't just the HOA or the lender. It was the insurance company, too. I had reported a change in occupancy as trustee. Their underwriter called to say the short-term rental activity voided coverage. If a guest so much as tripped on a rug, Erin and Tyler would be personally liable. I sat at the kitchen table with Erin when she opened that letter. She didn't speak, just stared at the page, her hands trembling, while Tyler ranted about lawyers out to get him. I wanted to put my arm around her to tell her I'd fix it, but instead I reminded myself she made a choice. That night, she came to my basement door. Her face was blotchy from crying. "Dad, please," she whispered. "Don't sell our home." "I'll do anything." The words cut deeper than any lockout ever could, because she still called it our home, not hers, not his, ours. And I had the power to take it away. Here's where I know half of you listening will tell me I should have relented. That family is family. That a man should forgive his only daughter, no matter how much it costs him. But tell me this. If forgiveness only means I pay the bill and swallow the insult, is that forgiveness or just surrender? I closed the binder, slid it back into the safe, and looked her in the eye. "Erin," I said, my voice steady, "there's only one way this ends. Either Tyler signs or I put this house on the market. And if I do, you won't see a dime of it." She gasped. "You wouldn't." But I already had the listing agreement drafted. And the shocking part? The trust had a clause I'd tucked in years ago, long before Anna died. Every dollar after debts and legal costs would bypass Erin and Tyler and go straight into 529 college accounts for my grandkids. Education first, always. I hadn't told her yet. And when she finds out, when she realizes I'm ready to sell the roof over her head, to protect her children's future. That's when the real battle begins. Tyler thought the notice was the worst of it. He had no idea how many other dominoes were already lined up against him. The first to fall was the HOA. By Monday morning, Aaron opened the mailbox to a fat envelope with violation notice, stamped in red. 5 separate fines, each $250, all tied to their little Airbnb hustle. Photos attached, license plates, screenshots of their online listing, even a time-stamped shot of a couple wheeling suitcases up our driveway. I didn't send those. Hank did, their neighbor. The same guy Tyler once sneered at for mowing his lawn in cargo shorts. Turns out, people remember who treats them with respect. Erin tried to laugh it off. We'll appeal. It's just paperwork. But her hands were shaking. Tyler was pacing, veins popping in his neck, ranting about nosy neighbors and boomer rules. I stayed quiet, because I knew what they didn't. Once the HOA files a report, it doesn't just vanish. It trickles. To insurers, to lenders, to city inspectors. 2 days later, the city inspector knocked. Someone, again not me, had filed a complaint about illegal garage conversion. The inspector walked straight past Aaron and Tyler, clipboard in hand, into the garage. The drywall was uneven, the wiring a mess, the smoke detector missing. When he asked for the furnace service tag, Tyler froze, because he'd ripped mine off last year. "Where's the maintenance record?" the inspector asked. Tyler stammered. Aaron bit her lip. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost, because that tag wasn't just a sticker, it was proof. And now it was an absence that screamed negligence. By Thursday, their lender sent a letter of its own. Occupancy violation. Short-term rental evidence attached. Cure the default or face acceleration of the loan. In plain English, pay what you owe or the bank calls the whole note due. Tyler's face when he read that, panic creeping into the bravado. He'd built this image of himself as the guy with answers, the man who rescued Erin from her boring dad's rules. And now, the walls were closing in, and he had nowhere to turn. Still, I wasn't done. Because remember that missing service tag? It wasn't just about code. It was about leverage. I tipped off the insurance company as trustee, reported a change in occupancy and use. Within 48 hours, they froze coverage. If a guest tripped on a loose step, if a fire broke out from that shoddy wiring, Aaron and Tyler would be on the hook personally. No shield, no payout, just ruin. That night, Aaron confronted me in the basement. Tears streaked her cheeks. "Dad, you're destroying us." I looked at her long and hard. "No, Aaron. I gave you every chance to make it right. You and Tyler destroyed yourselves." It was cruel, maybe. But it was true. Here's the part that will get people arguing. Some of you will say I should have protected her, spared her the fallout, let Tyler crash alone. Others will say she made her choice and needed to learn. The truth? Both are right, and that's the weight I carry. Then came the twist even I didn't expect. A detective called. Their fraud unit had traced the Best Buy application and the furniture store credit line attempt. They confirmed what I already knew in my gut. The PDF of my HVAC proposal had been tampered with. My signature cut, copied, and pasted. Not by a stranger, by someone with access to my files. By Tyler. Identity theft. A felony. The detective asked if I wanted to press charges. I didn't answer right away, because pressing charges meant dragging Erin through courtrooms and headlines. It meant her kids growing up with whispers about their dad. But letting it slide meant erasing myself, again, for the sake of her comfort. That night, as the wind rattled the windows, I pulled out the binder again, set it on the table, stared at the trustee clause, and for the first time in years, I felt steady, like the man Anna used to know. When Tyler stormed down to my room, waving the bank letter like it was a death sentence, I didn't flinch. "You'll ruin us," he growled. I stood up, slow, deliberate. "No, son, I'm saving what matters, and if that means burning down the rest, so be it." His face drained of color, because he finally realized something. I wasn't bluffing anymore. And the real shock, the one that would shatter whatever pride he had left, was still waiting in that binder. The clause about the grandkids' college trust. The clause he didn't even know existed. And when I told Erin about it, when she realized I'd rather sell the roof over her head than let Tyler steal another dime, that was the moment she'd have to choose. Her blood or her father. And I had no idea which way she'd turn. Tyler thought he could outshout me, but paper speaks louder than pride. Once the bank issued its cure or accelerate letter, he crumbled in ways I hadn't seen before. His voice got smaller. His excuses turned into mumbles. But Erin, my Erin, she stood there like a woman finally waking up from a long, bad dream. I laid the binder on the table one last time. The documents looked ordinary, but they carried the weight of years. The promissory note, the mortgage, and then the clause buried in the trust, written in my hand back in 2018, when Anna was still alive. In the event of default, after debts and costs, the remainder would bypass the beneficiaries and be redirected into subtrusts for educational use. My grandkids? Erin gasped. Tyler turned white. That's not legal, he stammered. Oh, it's legal, I said quietly, and it's already filed. That was the final twist. They thought they could squeeze me, humiliate me, maybe even erase me from the home I helped build. What they didn't know was that the foundation itself carried my fingerprints, every nail lined with conditions they had ignored. From there, the fall was slow and public. The HOA fines piled up, unpaid. Their Airbnb profile got reported, taken down. The bank accelerated the loan, and they didn't have the cash to cure it. Tyler begged his remodeling buddies for a bailout, but none came, especially after word spread that he was under police investigation for identity theft. The detective I'd spoken with confirmed the DA was offering a diversion program, but only if Tyler admitted what he'd done and completed community service. He refused at first, ranting about conspiracies, about me, weaponizing paperwork. But the moment his name hit the local docket, his boss fired him. He lost not just his job, but the one thing he clung to, his pride as the provider. And Erin, she came back to me in fragments. Not as the bright college girl who once hugged me after finals, not yet, but as a mother scared for her kid's future. She signed the rehabilitation agreement Valdez drafted. Public apology, therapy, repayment plan. No more shortcuts. She wept as she wrote her name, tears blurring the ink. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. 41 days later, the house closed. Snow was falling over Columbus, flakes catching in the headlights of the moving truck. I stood by as the real estate agent handed me the final check. After debts, legal fees, and fines, the remainder went straight into the 529 accounts for my grandchildren. Not a cent touched Erin or Tyler's hands. When she realized it was real, Erin squeezed my arm, her lips trembling. Tyler stormed off without a word. That was the last time I saw him. I moved into a cabin near Alum Creek. Nothing fancy. A lazy boy chair I reupholstered myself, a wood stove that crackles at night, and the quilt Anna stitched years ago draped across the backrest. Some mornings I fish. Some nights I just sit on the porch and breathe, knowing no one can turn a deadbolt on me ever again. And Erin? She rents a modest place now, close enough to bring the kids over on weekends. Every month, without fail, she texts me a screenshot of her repayment draft. It's not about the money anymore. It's about respect. Maybe even redemption. I won't pretend this story ends clean. There's still a scar, but scars mean you've healed enough to keep moving. What I learned through all of this is simple. Love without boundaries becomes weakness, and boundaries without love become cruelty. The trick, I think, is finding the line where respect and forgiveness meet. I didn't find it right away, but I found it before it was too late. Have you ever been in a moment where you had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting the people you love, even when they hurt you? I'd like to hear your story in the comments. And if you stayed with me through all this, thank you. Stick around, subscribe, and let's keep sharing these hard truths together.